Alright, it's day 2 of our CD009 swap. Why don't we get started? Alright, so doing some research last night, should be vehicle speed and then either of these two, backup and neutral safety. Ends up, to get the car moving, all we're really going to need is the backup switch. And likewise on our CD9, it should be backup and neutral safety. But again, all we need to get the car running is the backup. So yeah, we're gonna lose our vehicle speed sensor on our trans, which probably means the speedometer is not gonna work. It seems like people are using the Dakota digital speedo converter to translate an ABS signal to a speedometer signal. So I'll keep looking at more options, but that seems like the most straightforward option at the moment. Although it looks complicated, we'll deal with that thing later. Back to work. Alright, got my rear main seal out. I decided just to replace the seal only since it doesn't look like the seal retainer silicone's leaking anything, so we're just gonna do the seal only. Again, waiting for that from shipping. Brand new pilot bushing in there. The LOJ instructions want you to drive that flush against that surface. I would usually recommend looking at the service manual spec to see what the drive-in depth is, but in this case the LOJ manual wants you to do flush against that crankshaft surface. You can see I labeled this reverse. This is going to be our circle or our round gray connector. How did I find out that was reverse? Besides Google search. Let's find out. Got my shifter back on, shifted this into reverse, got my multimeter out, and pretty simple. Which one of these has continuity? So yeah, in reverse, got continuity through the round gray guy. So yeah, this will be our reverse. We will cut off our body side connector and splice in the CD009 pigtail for reverse, and so we'll get our reverse lights to work. I have this guy cleaned out. You can see someone notched this out for the starter already. So for the LOJ kit, no need to mill the bell housing, but you do need to notch out part of the bell housing to fit the RB25 starter. This used to be on a RB25 swap, so someone's notched this out before, but I'll show you guys how to get this set up and mocked up to know where to cut. And then also I need to, double check that my starter actually clears this notch as well. You can see the RB25 trans has a vent line that uses one of the bell housing bolts. So I'm actually going to transfer over this vent line over to our CD9, which also has a vent. So yeah, simple enough. Getting ready to mock up and see if we need to further clearance this bell housing. Got my adapter plate out. A piece that this kit does not come with. You need to get 2 of these alignment dowels for a 350Z bell housing. Already got one of these pressed in. I imagine you could use a dead blow hammer, but one of my favorite tools, these Knipex wrenches. I'll show you guys how I prefer to install these dowels. Also, to get some of our hardware ready, again, we're gonna use the shorter studs, the 43 millimeters, because we're doing a RB. The KA will take the long studs. And then we're going to grab 2 of our M10 by 1.5 55 millimeter long bolts, and then 2 of the large washers to help us bolt this guy and that guy together for the mock-up. Alright, got my adapter plate mocked up. Initial impressions, the fit and finish on this guy is excellent, and so is the fitment. You can't see them, but the 2 CD9 bell housing dowels right there and then right there. The instructions say you need to put in 2 bolts during a test fitment, but actually this thing fits absolutely excellent just with those 2 dowels in there. But just some other things to note. It looks like this is still going to be open to the air if stuff gets in here. Low risk, but still kind of just irks me a little bit. The last step, LOJ calls it an engine plate. Get the RB engine plate, set it on there, put the starter on there, and then see if we have clearance. But yeah, so far so good. I am so far very impressed by this adapter. You can see another potential entrance for debris up there. Again, just not a huge deal, just kind of irks me a little bit. Fit on the bell housing is really important. You need this centered in relation to the bell housing, or else bad stuff's gonna happen. You'll have weird noises, shifting problems, you'll wear out the transmission significantly faster if this input is not correctly aligned. I'm glad LOJ is using both the CD9 dowels on the trans side, then also we're keeping the dowels on the RB25 engine side. This is important. I've never seen it, but my years as an automotive technician, I've read TSBs before where if your dowels are missing, you can actually crack the bell housing. So not only is it important for alignment, but also risking the damage of all of this stuff. So I'm really glad LOJ has these like OEM level precautions in place. So yeah, I'm gonna clean up that engine plate before I throw this guy on there. We'll throw the starter on there and then check for clearance. All right, so I had to backtrack a little bit. Trying to fit this guy on, it wouldn't fit. And then I realized, wrong hole. I imagine this is probably for the KA starters, so I just had to extract the stud, move it over one bolt hole. Yeah, no problems. All right, so it looks like the previous owner saved us the hassle. A little bit overshot it. Yeah, this guy fits no problem. I'm gonna try to figure out something to do to cover that up. That's gonna definitely irk me too, but yeah, so far fitment's great. No need to grind anymore. Thank you, previous owner. These nuts included in the LOJ kit are for the starter, so I'm going to label these guys appropriately. Yeah, we should be pretty close to actually bolting this up into the car. I am once again excited as heck. So yeah, let's get to it. All right, got this guy strapped down, almost ready to install. All right, so installing the adapter plate to the trans, you get 4 of these guys. So 1, 2, 3, and then this is the last one right there. Apparently in these instructions, these washers are to shim these out because you don't want the head of this extending past the adapter. Otherwise that transmission is not gonna fully be able to seal. I don't really understand that because if you shim this out, it's only gonna move out further. I verified that these bolt heads are countersunk in there, so this guy's not gonna prevent the face of the bell housing from completely sealing. Our special KA and RB adapter, unfortunately, when I tried to fit this on by itself, it does not fit over my dowel. So I don't know if it's the anodizing or what. I'm gonna lightly take some fine sandpaper and hollow out this ID until that's a snug fit. Because again, that's a dowel and that'll help center up this guy. The other dowel is actually under here, and in the instructions it says make sure you knock down that dowel so that this adapter plate can fully seat against the engine as well. So yeah, I'll modify this guy a hair until it fits and then take this back off and rebolt it on and come back. Quick observation, I noticed this is countersunk on one side and then not really on the other side. So even on the countersunk side, I couldn't fit this over the dowel pin. So yeah, one more time, just fine grit sandpaper on the inside, just a hair to fit this over the dowel. And yeah, I'm curious, is it a tolerance? Is it because the anodization adds some? But yeah, not a big deal. All right, so I ended up having to take a ton of material out of this guy. You can see all the anodization's gone, and I took even more material off of that. I started with some sandpaper on a round dowel. That was obviously not working, so I had to get a bastard round file and yeah, take a bunch of material out of this guy. So interesting, it looks like these 350Z dowels, the OD is the same as the RB25. You can see finally, this guy finally fits on snug, but that took absolutely forever. Putting everything back together, that guy will go in there. Oops. That guy will go in there, and finally we should be able to put the trans in the car. All right, well, almost there, but not quite. Let's see where we're at. Well, sure enough, it's a tight fit, but it's actually not as bad as I thought. Another company's adapter instructions said in so many words that you had to beat the poop out of this trans mount area to fit the trans. But with the LOJ kit, that doesn't seem to be the case. You can see right here where I have that blue mark where it hits the trans mount section of the body. You can see whoever previously did this swap ground off a little bit on the trans. I think I'm gonna grind off additional because I don't want to beat the poop out of the body of this car. The other spot that's preventing me from going all the way in is actually right up in there. Bell housing's actually hitting the body. So a trick I've done in the past, I'll shove this up against the body, the bell housing, and rub it against where it's touching, and then when I take the bell housing off, there should be a pretty deep rub mark. That'll give me a clear indicator where I need to clearance the body. So yeah, I'm gonna take the trans back out, try to clearance the trans a little bit more if it's safe. If not, I may need to hit the body of the car. But yeah, let's get the trans out and see what it looks like. Also, this serial 9 shifter, you can see the exit is right under the sheet metal, so it looks like I'm gonna have to mount that adjustable shifter portion all the way forward. Sorry, I know there's a glare from our lights, but yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to mount that thing all the way forward. All right, and sure enough, right there is my rub mark where I actually need to hammer in the body for bell housing clearance. And then that mark on the transmission side, if you see this thing, it's got these nubs. Looks like the previous owner clearanced off that nub, but it looks like this is perfectly fine just to completely get rid of that nub and smooth it out. So yeah, we'll get out the angle grinder, clearance this nub down some more. We'll go MC hammer time on the left side of this tunnel, and then we'll try to fit up the transmission again.
Stop. Hammer time.
All right, got out the angle grinder. You can see I took a lot more meat off of this guy, smoothed it out. But yeah, that should be perfectly acceptable. Let's see if it clears. And here you can see the hammer time in the general vicinity. Hopefully this is enough. Otherwise, we're putting our parachute pants back on. Yeah, round 2. Let's try to fit up that trans again.
A few moments later.
All right, so good news is transmission's in and it clears. But there's a lot of bad news. Obviously, I didn't think ahead. Provision for the slave cylinders on the other side, right here, and then it's right next to the downpipe. So that means I'm gonna have to figure out a line situation from the driver's side over to here, and then get heat management for both the slave and then also this downpipe. Let's see. This exhaust hanger to the transmission mount, we're not going to be able to reuse this. The bigger deal is this Collins adapter. This Collins transmission mount adapter is actually not going to work for us. Kind of. A few criticisms. So these bolts go into the transmission. I wish there were steel spacers in here, because otherwise you can over torque and totally distort this mount, whereas a steel spacer would only allow you to torque it a certain amount. So be careful, don't tighten the crap out of these things. It's gonna be tough to position it, but obviously that's not gonna work for us. That's way too far up. So I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove this, bolt the hard mount to the soft mount for the trans, and then I'm gonna have to create some standoffs in the meantime. Later on down the line, I'll make a real transmission mount, but in the interim, I think some long bolts and some standoffs will do it. Yeah, a few setbacks, but still optimistic. You gotta be careful, you can't mount this way too far up, otherwise that shifter right here is gonna get too close to the tunnel, so I actually gotta drop this guy a little bit further down. But you know, the good news, I did not have to beat the crap out of the trans tunnel. You see right there where I ground it off, I think when we lower the trans a hair more, this guy will clear. Alternatively, I think I gotta take the trans back out at some point. Oh yeah, well, to put in the clutch and flywheel and stuff, so I'm gonna leave a blue mark and grind that off some more.
Many unbearable hours later.
Alright, so fast forward a little bit. After a few hours of frustration because I broke an exhaust stud. Yeah, the trans is in the car, but again, we still have a few serious issues to take care of. Let's go take a look inside. Alright, well, I got what I wished for. The CD009 shifter is gonna put this thing much further back. If you notice, there's a dent right here, because if I put the trans as far as I want to, the CD009 shifter is actually gonna hit this tunnel. So, oh man, I think I gotta bite the bullet and actually cut a slot right here. And yeah, I'll show you guys underneath why I can't just lower the back of the trans to fit this shifter. Yeah, ideally, you want to keep the engine at the same angle. You don't want to tilt it too far back or too far forward. I can tell this thing's too far back right now. Oh, I'll look up what angle the RB is supposed to be at, but I know from memory this fan shroud covered the blades before, so I know for sure this thing's too far, leaned too far back, which means I gotta find a way to get clearance to push the tail shaft back up. And here we are again under the car trying to get the proper angle for that transmission. It wasn't until this thing was installed that I realized how big this transmission is, because if you look, you know, at a certain point it almost becomes the lowest part of the car. You can see right there that ear. I'm gonna have to hammer that portion of the body. As the trans goes up, it's actually pushing this thing towards the right because it's contacting the body. So see, luckily that's the neutral safety switch, because otherwise there'd be no way to get a connector on there. And the reverse, right there I got it labeled. The reverse lamp switch is that blue one. Plenty of room for a connector. But yeah, otherwise, I'm really surprised. There's actually a lot of tunnel clearance. It's basically just that one guy right there. I'll show you guys back up top. I paused because it hurt when I said that, but I cut a hole And this is just about as far up as this trans is gonna go unless I, make a significant modification, cut a much bigger hole. So you can see what I'm talking about, having to make some spacers or standoffs. They're not gonna be too insanely long, so that'll be all right. So I'm gonna find the proper size bolts and then mock this up again, get a measurement to see how long of a standoff I need. I'm going to have to trim the hole up top a hair bit more because I can't shift into fourth right now. And then the last task we need is to measure that drive shaft. But yeah, home stretch, getting really close. All right, finally got this guy at just about the best angle I could get it. I actually found these, I think they're spacers for the rear toe links on a Lotus. 30 millimeters. And then on the other side, I just got a stack of washers just to mock this guy up in place. Last thing, measuring for the drive shaft. So you want to check with your local drive shaft shop on what measurement they want. I know my drive shaft shop, they want from the output seal to the center of the center bearing. You can see I have that blue mark right there. I had a piece of string tied in between here so I could get the exact center. Transmission output seal to the center of the center bearing, I got 31 5/8. For guys like me who only read metric, that's 31.5 plus 2 lines after that. So yeah, I'll drop the drive shaft off tomorrow to get modified. I'll take one more look under here. GK Tech makes a Z33 trans conversion clutch line, so I assume it's a long line, so it'll go from the clutch master all the way to the new slave. Got that guy on order. I'm actually gonna delete all this clutch damper stuff. I'm gonna have to get some heat management on order. But yeah, that means I'm gonna call it a night. It's late and it's also Christmas, so, but that actually doesn't mean that much for me. It just means it's late and I'm tired. So is my dog. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in part 3. Clutch and flywheel bolts, hardware and rear main seal and stuff should show up ETA on Monday, so hopefully we can bolt all this stuff in for good. I know I gotta trim a little bit more on top for the shifter, but yeah, part 3 soon. Questions on this swap? Leave a comment below. You know what to do. Appreciate the support. Catch you guys next time.